Hey everybody, welcome to Missy's Imaginings. It's been quite a while since we've done doll stuff. I've been making masks and trying to figure out how to get bias tape made. So if you're just now coming and you want to get caught up, there's a couple videos one on how I put masks together, and there's a link for the free pattern on the website. Also, there's a pattern for these little paper gizmos. They're just a simple little cardboard, well not cardboard, cardstock paper fold. There's a folder and a little slider that is to help you make some bias tape. And so there's a video on how to use these. Also, these are posted on the website for free, so you can download that, print it out, and just make sure that you print actual size and that you use cardstock paper when you print it, because regular paper is going to be too flimsy. So those are on the website. And then we get to Dolly news. The first thing, I was really tickled. I found someone who was selling a Fairyland Nannery event head, so I made a new purchase. Now she needs a body. Why would I do that? Why would I buy a head with no body? Well, here's the deal. I had one of these and I had purchased a body and I put them together. It was a Miro doll body, and I had her for a while, and I was getting quite a few dolls and some projects going, and I thought, I really don't need all these. And then I sold her, and then after she was sold, within a week, I thought, oh, why did I sell her? So then I was on the hunt to find another head, and it took a long time. And I've watched several on eBay and made offers, and they weren't accepted. But then finally, I found this one and made an offer, and they said, yes, you can have her for that price. So now I have this head. It is a little loose, so I'm going to have to probably suede in here, because you can see it kind of wants to, you can hear it in there. So, but that's okay. It was a good price, and I was happy to have her back. I had purchased the other Nannery that isn't quite as delicate as this one, and I got that head, and I thought, oh, that's not quite what I wanted. So that head's in a box over there somewhere. But I was able to get her, so I was glad for that. And then I thought, all right, so these two fellas haven't had many clothing items, and they need some things. So what I want to do is make like an oversized baggy sweater. So I purchased a long time ago some knit fabric, and I really like it. There's even like silver sparkle in it. Anyway, so I got this. It's really cool. It's just a knit fabric. It's, nothing really cool, but it is cool in that it's 2 yards for $2. And so I bought this thinking, okay, that'd be a perfect sweater, like a bulky sweater for the doll, because it's kind of a loose knit. And so it'd be good sweater fabric. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and rip this open. And so then I was thinking, okay, so now let's make a pattern to go with this fabric. And of course, that's what the video is today. But I thought I'd have to find that purple fabric. And maybe I'll insert some footage here about trying to find this fabric. Because my daughter, as I mentioned a while ago, helped me rearrange my room so that my room, workshop, filming spot would be more organized. So we did that. We reorganized, and I couldn't find it. And of course, it ended up being in the toter that was at the bottom in the back. Why? I don't know. But anyway, so I found it. So it took me forever. I had to move every single bin full of fabric to get to it, but I found it. Okay, so just real quick, this is kind of my storage and drafting cutting area. So there's bins up the top, then I have a baker's rack behind the sewing table, the drafting table, and I've got bins underneath with different projects in it. I have a box of materials and shipping materials there. And then of course there's toters on the baker's rack behind. Not only that, I don't know if you'll be able to see if I move this, I have toters back behind the table that go all the way to the floor. So it's 2 across and all the way to the floor. So yes, I literally had to pull the table out and go to the very, very bottom back corner back there to find that goofy purple fabric. But find it we did. And here is some black for the harem pants that I'm gonna make in black. And then I also found this really great sparkly stuff. And I thought, well, if that is not K-pop fabric, I don't know what is. So we'll have to make that into something at some particular point. But there you go. So now you can see how much fun I had getting all the way to the bottom. I don't know if I can even look back there. It's way in the back. So yeah, now back to the video. So it's a very loose knit, and I'll turn this light on just for the sake of, oh, it's gonna be right, so you can see how loose it is, because you can see through it. It's very translucent and transparent there. But it's a really good design for an oversized, just fun baggy sweater, and then it can be worn, you know, over a tank top or whatever. But I wanted to make a sweater out of this fabric, so it was just this major job to find it. But I did. So find it I did. So what we're going to do is I have the basic set for the Miro doll 66 centimeter male body, which is these two fellas. And I'm finding I really like this body. I just like the shape, the dimensions, everything. And even these hands are nice, which a lot of people really don't like Miro doll hands. But these are very nice. They look nice. And so these two guys, we're going to make some clothes for them. I have the pattern for these pleated pants on the website already. So if you want these, they're like a harem pant. So it has a dropped crotch and a waistband that's stretchy. So you can find the video on actually making those. Then also I'm going to be using the basic set for this body type, which is also posted on the website, and draft an oversized sweater. So I had all my patterns out looking for the things I needed, and I found them. So what we'll do is we'll switch up the camera. I'm going to put a light underneath the glass, so I'll have like a light table here on my sewing station, and we'll go ahead and draft a pattern for an oversized sweater and then cut it out and put it together. So that's what we're going to do in this video, and come along for the ride, sew along with me, have some fun, and we'll get started. I have my regular just 8.5 by 11 inch paper here, and the 3 pieces of the basics that I'm going to use is just the bodice or chest front, back, and the sleeve. So it's going to be simple, and the only reason I have both of these out is I want to first compare. And it's nice that I have the light table because I can literally lay one on top of the other. And I want to compare by putting the center line on each other, just like so. And I'm going to match up the waistline. So hopefully this will show in the camera. You can see the difference. The center back is on the top, and you can see that the back is higher than the front, because the back of the neckline is going to be higher than the front of the neckline. So you can kind of see how those compare. And I want to see which of my pattern pieces is wider. And here with this particular pattern, the way it was on the doll, because I cut it right off the doll, the front piece, which is underneath, is actually a little bit wider. And so what I want to do is I'm going to use the width of the front piece as a guide, and then the neckline on the back piece, I'll be using that probably. And then of course my shoulders are going to be wider, the whole thing's going to be wider, but I just want it to be wider than the widest pattern piece to ensure that it's going to be what I want when it's finished. because a lot of times if you make something, even if it's wider but you've used the most narrow piece, it's not going to be as wide as you think. So I'm going to use the widest piece and still make it wider. Also, I'm going to widen the sleeves quite a bit at the underarm portion, and then it'll narrow back down at the wrist. So I'm going to be using that, and you can tell I've used it for other things because it's all scribbled on. So what I want to do to start is I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to fold it in half lengthways and find what's going to be my center, front and back with the fold. And you can guess where I'm going with this, right? So that way, all I have to do is actually design half of the sweater, and then all I have to do is fold the paper when I cut it out and go from there. And I am going to be marking this with my pencil just because the fold tends to create a shadow and it's harder to see. So now I'm going to place that center line, not on the dark one because that's my seam allowance, but on the actual center, and I'm going to take it up kind of to the top of the paper because this is going to be oversized and I want it to be baggy and long. Okay, so here is the front, the actual front line. Right now I'm not worried about seam allowances. So I know that I want the neckline to be normal. I don't want it to hang down way, way far. So that's going to be my neckline. Now I'm going to take the shoulder, I'm going to raise it up to be more of a T shape, and I'm going to come out quite a bit because I want that shoulder to hang off the edge of the shoulder. So I'm going to come out quite a bit. I don't even know how much that is, so I'm not going to say. Now I'm going to take the pattern piece out and I'm going to slide it, keeping the center line parallel to the line that I drew on my paper, and keeping this point of my neckline and the point of my neckline just kind of straight across so that my pattern, you know, hasn't gotten all wonky. Now I'm going to go ahead and put that armhole seam here. And now I'm not going to fit this. I'm just going to come pretty much straight down. There will be a slight, no, I'm not even going to do that. Not even an angle. So I'm just going to come straight down. There we go. Now this pattern piece goes right to the waist of the doll, but I want it to be substantially longer. And I'm not really even doing a measurement. I'm just going to say, you know what? I want it to be really long. So let's go ahead and go to here. There we go. That's a long sweater. That's what I want. Just a long sweater. So here is the front piece of my sweater. Now for the back piece, I'm going to use my second piece of paper. I will fold that as well. Here we go. Just so that I have a line where I can fold. I'm going to place this one on top. There we go. And just kind of feel my fold there. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to have the neckline a lot higher because this will be the back piece. So I'm going to bring that neckline up. This is my back. There we go. Now I'm just going to make this the same. I am going to come a little bit forward for the armhole. I'm not going to go in quite as far. So it's going to come a little bit more straight down than curve in. And then all I'm going to do is put a dot here, a dot here, and then I can use my ruler to finish that out. There we go. And from this dot to my center line. All right. Here we go. Put our seam allowance on there. Oh goodness. There we go. Seam allowance time. And I want that to be a little bit straighter. 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. There we go. And 1/4 inch seam allowance on the bottom. And I'm thinking about the size of the head of a BJD in comparison to the size of the neck of the sweater. And I think I want to, you know, I might go ahead and make the front neckline a little bit more of a V-neck. Not quite, but more of a scoop. Just to give more of an opening there, so I can actually have it as a pullover. So I think that's what I'll do. And I might make it open just a little bit wider. Because I could have a seam in the back, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having a pullover sweater, right? So let's see. So we're gonna line this up. Okay, and I think I'll just make the back go down a little bit more. There we go. And we'll try that. And hopefully I can get it over their head. All right, so here's our back and our front. There we go. Now time for the sleeve. So now to make the sleeve, once again, I'm going to fold my paper. Just so that I can have a center line. There we go. I'm going to place my pattern piece so that the center line is lined up. And here again, I do want it to be a little bit longer than this one, so I'm going to allow length down here at the bottom. And I do want it to be kind of a baggy sweater, which I wonder if I want the armholes to be bigger. I think I'm going to have to make an adjustment on these too, right? So let's do like a 1/4 inch adjustment. Come down 1/4 inch here, because I want a bigger arm opening. Maybe even a 3/8 of an inch. Okay, there we go. We're gonna open up that armhole a little bit more. Okay, so that's a 3/8 inch on that side. I'll do the same thing here. 3/8 of an inch. There we go. You like how I'm just making all these just crazy last minute adjustments? Sometimes that's how my pattern making works. It's just an experiment in progress. All right, so now line this back up. Now I know I can go ahead, and I'm going to include the seam allowance on this one just so I don't forget it. I'm going to be able to make each side come out 3/8 of an inch wider. There we go. And I want it to be wide and come down. So I'm going to take the narrow edge at the wrist, and I'm going to keep it the same distance from the center, but I'm just going to bring it down so it's longer, probably 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to go from my wider point now, try to make just a little bit, there we go. And I'm going to connect this wider part down to where my wrist will be. So it won't be real baggy at the wrist part, but it'll be a lot looser in the arm. So that's what I'm going to do. There we go, and then just bring that across. There we go. Because even if you have a baggy sweater, well, let me make it a little bit wider. You don't want it to be the same width at the wrist that it is the top of the sweater. There we go. Oh, maybe a little bit more length. Okay. So there we go. So now I'm going to fold that, and I'll cut out the sleeve. There we go. Now for the neckline, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the actual seam side. And this just kind of has to be rough because I need just a rough measurement here. And it looks like I've got, I best turn it so I can see what I'm measuring. Would that help? Okay, here we go. And I'm only going to go from where the seam would be, which is going to be roughly 7 centimeters for the back. So I'll move my 7 up to my seam allowance. Here again, I got to turn it so I can see. There we go. So 7. And I'm just using centimeters because that's the first thing I grabbed on my ruler here, on my tape measure. And 16. So it's 16 centimeters would be the entire length of the neckline. And I want the neckline to not be really floppy, so I'm going to want to make that right at the 16, and then I'll use some of the seam allowance that will cut down that measurement so it will actually be a little shorter. And I'm going to make it as wide as this little bit that I have left here, and it needs to be, let's see, what did I want? Let's see here. Just going to line up my measurement, and I wanted it to be, we'll go with 15. That way there'll be a little bit of stretch to it where it's actually attached to the sweater. So I'm going to mark my 0 and go down this way, and that's going to give me 15 centimeters. So that's shorter than the neck opening because I'm going to be stretching this as I sew it around the neckline. So I'm going to cut this. Oh, maybe I just a hair on there. There we go. So that'll be my neckline. So that'll be sewn there. And then I think I'm going to just hem the sleeves. Well, do I want a cuff on the sleeves? I don't think I do. I'll maybe make a piece just in case if some of you guys want to put a cuff on your sleeve. I don't think I want one, but we'll make that piece. So for the sleeve cuff, it would be this wide, and it's going to fold, and it needs to be shorter than the length of the sleeve. So we're going to take a centimeter off there, maybe a little bit more than a centimeter. There we go. So that will give stretch to kind of close the wrist down so it's not so big and floppy. There we go. So this can be the wrist cuff. I need to write it on there so I remember what it is. There we go. We'll just cut that out. And now because it's a big oversized baggy sweater, well, do I want to? Let's see. I'm just going to write the measurement of if you want to do a band on the bottom. And so I might go ahead and do that, but I'm not going to make a pattern piece. I'm just going to measure it. So here we have 7.5 inches, which would be 15 inches total. 15 inches, okay. So for the waistband, we want to cut 14.5 inches by, let's see, 2 inches. And that would give a 3/4 inch waistband. Or like hem band, whatever we want to call it. So there we go. Throw this away. All right, so despite all my bumbling and mistakes, which often happen when I'm doing a new pattern, we have the back, the front, we have the sleeve, the neckline, and the waist cuff, and I think I'm gonna like that length. Well, yeah. I think I'll like that length. We'll see. We'll put one together and see what we think. So there we go. There's our pattern pieces ready to cut out. So I got my pieces all cut out and ready, and then I was looking at this one compared to the doll, and I thought I want it to be longer. So I made another set, and I'll go ahead and include both lengths on the pattern on the website, but I wanted more length on my sweater. And my fabric is doubled, so I'm just going to cut the back piece on doubled fabric, and then I'll adjust the neckline and the arms on the one that I cut out, just because I only need, one layer of each one. But I do need 2 sleeves and 2 wrist cuffs, and there's enough little selvage on the bottom here where it was kind of rolled, and I let it hang over the edge of the table just so that it would be flat to cut the pieces. And I'll use that for my neckline and also for the waistband. So I'm actually only going to be cutting about this much out of my fabric, and I'll have quite a bit left. With my pieces all cut out, most of what I'm going to be doing is going to be done on the serger machine, just because the nature of this is going to be to ravel and curl. So the first thing I'm going to do on my neckline is I'm going to, with the right sides together, I'm going to serge the ends together so that I will have a finished seam when I turn it right side out to go around the neck. So I'm going to serge this edge together on the neck piece. Then I'm also going to take the wrist pieces, and I'm just going to do right side out, and I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to serge this to the ends of the sleeves with the right sides together, so that'll put the cuffs on the sleeves. And then I'm going to serge the shoulders together. So I'll do that much and then come back to the camera. The shoulders have been serged together. So now this is going to be a tricky part, because I want to do it on the serger just so that it has a little bit more stretch. then if I do it on the machine, you kind of lose the stretch. So I'm going to take my neck band and I'm going to first flip it so that it's right side out. There we go. So that's my finished seam there that we put in with the serger machine. Then I'm going to just flip it in half with the right sides out and make just like a little narrow banded tube. There we go. And then I'm going to line up that seam allowance, and that's going to be at the back. So on the back of my sweater, with right sides together, I'm going to be serging the neckline. So a lot of times if you turn it so that your sweater's inside out, here we go, and then I find the back of my neck here, and I just like to make sure that that seam allowance is laying the same way so I don't get a weird rumple in there, which can happen. So that's going to be the center of the back of the neck, and these are kind of floppy, so now I have to try to figure out which was the back. There we go. The higher one is the back. So I'm going to go ahead and get a, well, I'm not going to pin it, I don't think. I think I'm just going to grab a clip because pins tend to get caught on things. So I'm going to grab one of my cute little tiny, I'll get one of the itty bitty ones. There you go. And I'm just going to clip this in place in the center back. Then I'll just kind of loop it up so I can find the opposite to the back, which would give me the center front. There we go. So I'll find the center front of my collar or neck lining, which is right there. I'll grab another little clip. There we go. And since I have that kind of pulled where I know where the center is, I'm going to clip the center. There we go. Now I'll find the center front of my sweater, just kind of by lifting it up and finding the center. And then I'm going to clip that center of my collar to the center of my sweater. And then I'm going to start at the back and just serge all the way around, kind of stretching it as I go so that the collar meets the edge of the sweater. And it probably could have been a little bit shorter, but I think it'll be fine because I want it to be able to go over the head of the doll. So I'm going to serge that in place. Once I get that done with the right sides together, I'm also going to be putting the sleeves in the armholes, just matching the center of the shoulder on the sleeve to that shoulder seam on the sweater. Just a note, I did do something kind of dumb. I'm so used to sewing, you know, everything with inside out and then you flip it. So I did the cuffs backwards. Now that the collar's put in and the sleeves are put on, I'm just going to start by making sure that my cuffs are turned the right way. Oh, and the other thing I was going to let you know is these cuffs, because this was such stretchy fabric, let's get to where the edge will show, I did stretch a little bit more on the cuffs, and I'm just simply going to trim off the extra, there we go, on each of the cuffs, because I did pull and stretch that a little bit more because my cuff could have been shorter to reach that distance. So I'm just going to cut that off. There we go. And then I'm just simply going to make sure my cuffs are turned the right way and start at the cuff, go to the underarm, and then down the side. I'm going to do that on both sides, and then all I will need to do is to put the waistband on. There again, I will clip at the center front, the center back, and each side, and stretch the band as I sew it to fit the hemline, which will give it that little bit of a snug pull on the bottom. So I'll do that and come back to the camera with a finished sweater. And here is the finished sweater. So it went over his head just fine, and the sleeves are extra long, the length is extra long. So yeah, it's just an oversized big sweater, and it's just simple to put together. No buttons, no elastic, no snaps. It's just easy, just something simple to put together. So it gives you a fun, easy project. You can make the length as long or short as you like. You can shorten the sleeves if you like, but I will have this pattern ready and post on the website, so it'll just kind of give you an option. And because it's so oversized, it'll probably fit some of the really tall guys too, especially if you have a nice stretchy fabric like this is. It's just, there's a lot of stretch and play, and so there's a lot of room in the shoulders, but I just wanted a big oversized sweater, and so that's what we have. So until next time, happy sewing, take care, and I'll see you later.